At 11:47 p.m., the empty upload box is still waiting. The presentation was assigned 3 weeks ago. For most of that time, it existed less like a real project and more like background weather. Always there, never quite urgent enough to begin. Now the deadline is close. Ideas are appearing, and your fingers are moving faster than they have all month. You are focused, inventive, and personally offended that time continues to pass. Where was this version of you 3 weeks ago? The task did not become more interesting. Your brain did not suddenly discover discipline. The future simply became impossible to ignore. That is the central puzzle of procrastination. How can something matter to you, occupy your thoughts all day, and still feel impossible to begin? Procrastination is not simply choosing to do nothing. It is the kind of delay that works against your own plan, then leaves a later version of you paying for it. And unlike ordinary laziness, it is rarely relaxing. You are not resting. You are carrying the task around without moving it forward. In many cases, the brain is not comparing two equal choices. The task demands effort now and promises a benefit later. Putting it off offers relief now and a problem later. Only one of those rewards is available right now. Finishing the work may eventually produce a better result, less stress, and perhaps a small step toward a long-term goal. But starting it today brings something much more vivid. You must choose the main idea. Discover that half your notes are useless. Remove examples you liked, and possibly learn that your brilliant opening is not actually brilliant. That benefit is abstract. The present discomfort is already in the room. The farther away a reward is, the less real it tends to feel. Psychologists call this temporal discounting. A smaller reward today can feel more valuable than a larger reward next month, even when waiting would produce the better result. That pattern makes sense in uncertain situations. A sure benefit now can matter more than a bigger one that may never arrive. Spending energy on a vague payoff later is simply a harder sell. That does not mean putting things off as an ancient survival skill. It means an old preference for what feels immediate can end up shaping how we handle very modern problems. Like a blinking cursor and a deadline next Thursday. Immediate costs feel concrete. Distant rewards feel uncertain. Effort without a clear path invites caution. The environment changed. The calculation remained. In 2024, Pei-Wen Zhang and Wei-Ji Ma tracked when students completed 7 hours of research participation over a period of 109 days. Some spread the work out. Others pushed nearly all of it toward the deadline. The more strongly students preferred immediate rewards, the more likely they were to delay the work. That does not prove one mechanism explains every case of delay, but it shows that the pull of now can predict real behavior, not just answers in an imaginary choice. The person who receives the benefit later can even feel like somebody else. Researchers have a name for this: future self-continuity, how connected you feel to the person you will become. When that person feels distant, passing them the cost becomes easier. Tomorrow's version of you has been receiving unpaid overtime for years. The arrangement was never formally approved, but distance is only part of the problem. Many projects are difficult to begin because they are not yet real tasks. Prepare the presentation sounds like one instruction. Your brain hears a room full of unanswered questions. What is the main point? Which examples belong? How much research is enough? And what exactly does make it good mean on a Tuesday evening? A vague project can hide dozens of decisions inside one innocent sentence. Before you perform the work, you have to invent the work. Every choice closes other possibilities. Planning keeps every possible version alive. Starting chooses one and disappoints the rest. A first attempt can also reveal something about you. Before that attempt, your ability is still a rumor. Untested. Theoretically excellent. Then you write the first sentence. It is ordinary. The idea has holes. The result no longer exists safely in your imagination. So you look away. You check one message. You watch one short video that becomes 4 short videos wearing a long coat. For a moment, the pressure drops. And that small change teaches the brain something important. Putting it off worked. It did not move the work forward. It only eased the feeling the work had created. That relief can become a reward. The next time the task brings confusion, boredom, anxiety, or self-doubt, the exit becomes easier to find. You avoid it again. The pressure drops again. The habit strengthens without ever becoming enjoyable. This is why you can feel miserable and still repeat the habit. Its reward is not pleasure. It is the temporary absence of a feeling you did not want. A world full of alternatives makes that exit easier to reach. Boredom makes alternatives visible. Putting things off gives one of them a job. Remove the discomfort now. But sometimes delay does more than reduce discomfort. It gives failure an alibi. Researchers call this self-handicapping, creating or accepting an obstacle that can take part of the blame if things go badly. In a 1991 laboratory study, women classified as procrastinators could choose distracting noise before what they believed was an ability test. About 49.1% chose the noise. Among the non-procrastinators, the figure was about 30.2%. They were not simply failing to remove a distraction. They were choosing one. Why deliberately make your own test harder? Because failure now has another possible explanation. Maybe the noise caused it. And if the result is good, succeeding despite the obstacle can look even more impressive. The study used an artificial task and a limited sample. It does not mean every delayed assignment is a secret way of protecting how you see yourself. But the mechanism explains a familiar fear. I failed because I ran out of time hurts. I had enough time, tried properly, and still was not good enough can feel far more threatening. A late start makes the task harder. But it also makes the verdict about your ability less clear. Potential is safest before evidence arrives. Then the deadline approaches. The distant consequence becomes immediate. There is an empty upload box, a teacher who will notice, and perhaps a classmate whose work cannot begin until yours exists. Now both choices hurt today. Starting is uncomfortable. Not starting is about to become worse. Pressure feels like motivation because the future has finally become a tonight problem. And when the last-minute sprint succeeds, the system learns the wrong lesson. You slept badly. The result was weaker than it could have been. But the file was submitted. The emergency rescued you. So next time, beginning early feels even less necessary. A bad system can survive for years when it keeps producing acceptable endings. Artificial intelligence can help at exactly the point where people often get stuck. The task is still vague. It can finish the report into a few concrete moves and reveal the first decision you actually need to make. Some early studies suggest that this kind of support may improve time management and reduce stress, although the evidence is still limited. But removing confusion is not the same as removing thought. In a small 2026 study that has not yet been formally reviewed, programmers using AI were not faster on average and later performed worse on a knowledge test. Those who asked for explanations learned more than those who handed over the work. So AI can help you begin. It can also finish the task while postponing the skill. The file arrives on time. The presentation looks polished from the outside, nothing appears delayed. Back at the upload box, the task has not changed. The calculation has. The effort still feels real. But the distant consequence has finally moved close enough to compete with it. What looks like a motivation problem often is not one. You feel the effort now. The benefit comes later. The first step is blurry. And relief is always close. That is why blaming your character explains so little. The task was never waiting for a better version of you. It was waiting for the future to become real enough to matter. Sometimes another person changes that calculation. A shared deadline, a meeting, or someone waiting for your part can make a distant consequence feel real. The work leaves your private world and enters someone else's. And when no one is waiting, asking, or noticing, the difficulty may be about more than motivation. It may also be about being unseen. Wait, is all of this actually true?